Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone in a softly lit room. There's a faint scent of lavender, a gentle clock ticking in the background, and a trained voice asking, "How did that make you feel?" You answer, perhaps with a bit more clarity than last time, and you feel momentarily relieved. Weeks pass, maybe months, and each session becomes a kind of ritual. Safe, predictable. But here's the question you can't seem to shake. Why, after all this talking, do I still feel broken? This isn't an attack on therapy. It's a confrontation of what therapy often becomes. A comfortable cage. A place where you learn to describe your chains instead of breaking them. Modern therapy, especially in its mainstream consumer-packaged form, has become dangerously good at making you feel like you're doing the work without ever actually transforming. It offers insight but rarely ignition. It soothes pain but often dulls the will to transcend it. Therapy has evolved into a ritual of reflection, but not rebellion. You tell your story. You're validated. Maybe your coping skills improve. But does your soul awaken? We live in a time where people spend years in therapy, yet the core self remains unformed, untested, and unknown. Not healed, but managed. We've traded metamorphosis for maintenance. This is the great paradox. Therapy has never been more accessible, and yet people have never felt more lost. Why? Because therapy, in its current commodified form, treats symptoms, not foundations. It teaches us to avoid suffering, reframe it, or medicate it, but rarely to confront it as the forge of our becoming. Most therapists won't say it outright, but the goal has subtly shifted from transformation to comfort. And in doing so, it reinforces the very patterns that brought you there in the first place. Carl Jung, the shadow walker of the psyche, once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." This avoidance is now institutionalized. Therapy has become a mechanism of avoidance disguised as exploration. You are encouraged to talk, but not to descend, to reflect, but not to shatter. We medicate the pain before we understand its necessity. We name the trauma without asking what it's demanding of us. We externalize the cause and minimize our power. The myth of childhood becomes the eternal scapegoat of adulthood. But at some point, you must ask, is my past a story I'm trapped in, or one I'm called to rewrite? Most therapy doesn't push you to that edge. It doesn't demand rebirth. It gives you a chair and a tissue box, not a sword and a mirror. And maybe, just maybe, you don't need another listener, you need a reckoning. You can spend a decade examining your wounds, only to become a scholar of your own suffering. But that's not liberation. That's purgatory. What if the pain you're trying to process isn't meant to be neutralized, but to be metabolized into power? What if healing isn't about returning to who you were, but becoming someone who's never existed before? This is where most therapy quietly fails. It teaches you to adapt to your dysfunction, not transcend it. It helps you survive your life, not claim it. So the question is no longer, am I healing? But rather, am I becoming? In the next section, we will unravel how the structure of mainstream therapy often prevents this becoming. We'll look at the ways it limits your growth by pathologizing your pain and fragmenting your psyche into diagnoses, instead of guiding you into wholeness. Because you weren't meant to be fixed. You were meant to be forged. Once you step into the therapeutic world, you're quickly introduced to the language of diagnosis. Generalized anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, complex PTSD, borderline personality. The DSM becomes your new scripture, and suddenly your suffering has a name. First, this is comforting. To name something is to see it, and to see it feels like progress. But is it? What if the diagnosis you receive isn't a window into healing, but a ceiling on your transformation? The system you now inhabit doesn't see your anxiety or depression as part of a necessary alchemical process. It sees them as malfunctions, problems to be regulated. Something's off in your brain chemistry. Maybe it's your childhood, maybe your environment. But regardless of the cause, the goal is clear. Reduce the symptoms, stabilize the mood, help you function again. And this is where the mask slips. The therapeutic industrial complex isn't built to foster your awakening. It's built to normalize you, to make you compatible with the system again, to get you back to work, back into relationships, back into a routine, even if the routine is the very thing killing your soul. Suffering becomes pathologized. Existential unrest is labeled a disorder. A crisis of meaning is translated into clinical language, and your deepest questions about purpose, identity, mortality are sanitized into symptom checklists. You're not encouraged to explore what your pain is trying to birth in you. You're taught to manage it. Nietzsche warned us about this trap when he wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But modern therapy often skips the why. It tries to treat the how with CBT, with medication, with breathing techniques, while leaving your existential vacuum untouched. You're taught to self-soothe, but not to self-overcome. You're asked how you feel, but not what you believe or what you're becoming. The result? You become fluent in your dysfunction. You learn how to describe your emotional weather in perfect detail, yet remain blind to the climate of your soul. You develop insight without integration, awareness without action, understanding without uprising. And here's the deeper danger. Once you internalize a diagnosis, it becomes part of your identity. You stop asking, "What is this pain trying to show me?" and start repeating, "I have depression." The label gives you a lens, but it can also become a cage. When everything is a disorder, nothing is a mystery. But the psyche is not a problem to be solved. It is a mystery to be lived. Aldous Huxley once remarked, "The real hopeless victims of mental illness are to be found among those who appear to be most normal. They are normal not in what may be called the absolute sense of the word. They are normal only in relation to a profoundly abnormal society." And that's the crux. Therapy often helps you become more normal, more adapted, to a world that is itself disordered, disembodied, and soul-sick. It doesn't ask if the system you're being reintegrated into is worth adapting to. So the real question becomes, do you want to be well-adjusted to a dysfunctional world? Or do you want to break free from it altogether? Because true healing is not about functioning. It's about freedom. And freedom is not granted. It is earned through confrontation, suffering, and sacrifice. Mainstream therapy rarely guides you into that fire, keeps you safe. And safe is seductive, but safe won't save you. In the next section, we'll peel back the layers on why comfort is the most subtle prison of all, and how therapy, in its desire to protect you, often becomes a barrier to your awakening. Because sometimes, the comfort you're chasing is the very thing that's keeping you numb. Not the kind you light to stay warm, but the kind that threatens to burn everything you are not. The kind of fire that demands you choose. Stay in the house, or walk into the flames and become something else entirely. Now imagine someone placing their hand gently on your shoulder and saying, "You don't have to go into the fire. Sit here. Talk about it. We'll make sense of your fear. We'll manage your panic. We'll cope." That's what most therapy has become, a fire escape from your own transformation. It doesn't mean to be. In fact, it's well-intentioned. Therapists care deeply. They want to help. But the frameworks they operate within, the paradigms they're taught, are not built for soul work. They're built for safety, for symptom reduction, for containment. And that's where the problem begins. We live in a culture that worships comfort. Pain is seen as a problem. Discomfort is pathologized. Anguish is medicated. Instead of being taught how to hold our suffering like a crucible, we're taught how to avoid the burn. Therapy, then, becomes not a sacred confrontation, but a cushion. But what if discomfort isn't the enemy? What if it's the teacher? Arthur Schopenhauer once observed, "Suffering is the substance of all life. It is ineradicable, essential, and necessary." Modern therapy doesn't know what to do with this truth. It's not designed for it. It's designed to minimize suffering, not to mine it for meaning. You're told to regulate your emotions, reframe your thoughts, practice mindfulness, and breathe. All valuable tools, but tools for what? To return to baseline? To become more functional? To keep your life intact? But what if your life needs to fall apart? What if what you call dysfunction is the very friction that could catalyze your evolution? Comfort, when overprescribed, becomes a tranquilizer. It lulls you into a psychological waiting room where nothing is urgent and nothing is demanded. You survive, but you don't evolve. You cope, but you don't confront. You talk about your pain, but never with it. And in that waiting room, the soul quietly begins to rot. You become emotionally literate, yet existentially starved. You can name your attachment styles, your cognitive distortions, your triggers, but you still wake up hollow. You know your trauma map like the back of your hand, but have no idea what you're willing to die for. You've been comforted into stagnation. Here lies the paradox. The more you are protected from pain, the more you are prevented from purpose. True therapy, if such a thing can even be standardized, should not be a balm for the ego. It should be a blade. It should cut through your defenses. It should call you into chaos, into confrontation, into creative destruction. But who wants to pay for that? Insurance companies don't reimburse for spiritual crisis. There's no billing code for existential descent. And so the system bends toward comfort, towards stabilization, and away from transformation. Therapists are trained to be non-directive, to validate, to reflect, but rarely to challenge. The therapeutic space becomes emotionally safe but spiritually sterile. And that's the great loss, because there are things inside you that will never wake up unless they are provoked. Parts of your soul that will only rise when everything false burns to ash. Comfort won't get you there. Only fire will. Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." But if therapy only helps you process what's been done to you and never forces you to decide what to do with it, then you remain stuck in a loop of understanding without action, insight without incarnation. In the next section, we'll examine how this loop becomes a psychological trap and why the endless pursuit of healing can become just another form of avoidance, keeping you safe, sound, and utterly stuck. Because at some point, you have to stop preparing to live and start living. There comes a moment, often quietly, when the pursuit of healing becomes indistinguishable from the fear of living. You start with the noblest intention, to understand your wounds, to reclaim your agency, to rise from the ruins of your past. But somewhere along the way, healing becomes your identity. And without realizing it, you're no longer healing to live, you're living to heal. This is the healing trap. It wears many disguises. I'm not ready yet. I'm still working on myself. Maybe next year I'll be in a place where I can try. The language sounds self-aware, even wise. But if you listen closely, it's soaked in fear. Mainstream therapy often feeds this trap, not because it wants to, but because it's structured to perpetuate the process rather than complete it. You're always in progress, always exploring, journaling, unpacking, processing, session after session, year after year. But when does it end? When does the work become the life? There's no ceremony, no rite of passage that says, you have descended into your pain, and now you must rise. There's no moment where the therapist looks at you and says, you're ready, go live now, risk now, bleed for something, burn for someone, build your life, not as a reaction to your pain, but as a rebellion against it. Instead, the sessions continue. The language becomes more refined. The wounds are described in exquisite detail. You become articulate in your own suffering. But articulation is not transformation. Viktor Frankl, who faced the darkest edges of human suffering, warned us, when a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. And in today's healing culture, meaning is often replaced with self-improvement. Working on yourself becomes the ultimate distraction, noble on the surface, but hollow underneath. A therapeutic treadmill. Exhausting, expensive, and ultimately stationary. You can become addicted to self-exploration, obsessed with identifying every trauma, every emotional wound, every inherited pattern. But the more you fixate on what's broken, the less room you leave for what's possible. The lens of pathology can become a mirror that shows you only your limitations. You stop asking, what am I capable of? And instead, you endlessly circle the question, what's wrong with me? This is not healing. This is stasis. To heal is not to return to some imagined state of perfection before you were wounded. That version of you never existed. Healing isn't a rewind button. It's a rebirth. A painful, radical reimagining of who you could become because of the wounds, not in spite of them. But here's the catch. Rebirth requires death. Death of old identities. Death of victimhood. Death of the comfort that says, I need to be whole before I take action. You don't. You never will be. And that's the secret. No one is, but some choose to move anyway. Healing must be a threshold, not a home. A process with a destination. A life that demands courage, creativity, connection, confrontation. But if therapy never leads you out of the cave, if it never says, go now, live, love, lose, begin again, then it becomes its own kind of prison. A padded room for the psyche, quiet, safe, and softly suffocating. The deeper truth is this: most people are not afraid of being broken. They are afraid of being powerful. Because power demands responsibility. It demands choice. It demands that you stop excavating your story and start rewriting it. So if you've been healing for years, but your life hasn't changed, if your relationships are still empty, your purpose still unclear, your risks still unfaced, maybe it's time to stop healing. Maybe it's time to start living. In the next section, we'll explore what it actually means to choose transformation. Not as a therapeutic goal, but as a sacred rebellion. We'll look at the terrifying freedom that comes when you finally decide, I am no longer a patient. I am a participant, because the journey doesn't end with healing. That's just the beginning. There comes a point where you must ask yourself the most terrifying question of all. If I wasn't wounded, who would I be? It's not the pain that holds us hostage. It's the identity we've built around it. Trauma becomes a compass. Labels become shelter. Therapy becomes the cathedral where we pray to our brokenness. But the soul doesn't want comfort. It doesn't even want healing. The soul wants transcendence. And transcendence is violent. Not in the way of harm, but in the way of truth. It rips. It exposes. It annihilates everything false in you, not to punish, but to reveal what is real underneath. This is the threshold most therapy never crosses, because this is where healing ends and transformation begins. Transformation is not polite. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It demands that you betray your familiar pain, that you let go of the stories that once gave you safety, that you step out of the waiting room and into the arena. Most therapy doesn't lead you here. Can't. It was never designed to. Therapy keeps you in the story. Transformation invites you to leave the story altogether, to burn the script, to stop editing your pain and start alchemizing it. There is a rebellion that lives inside every wounded person, a deep, ancient refusal to remain defined by their damage. But rebellion is risky. It threatens your relationships, your habits, your worldview. It threatens your self-image, especially the one that has learned to survive by being broken. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege is not handed to you in a session. It is seized in defiance of the very systems that taught you to sit quietly in your pain, rather than turn it into purpose." And this rebellion? It's not against therapy itself. It's against the way therapy has been tamed, against how it has been co-opted to maintain the social order instead of disrupt it, to treat human anguish like a technical problem, not a spiritual calling. You were not born to be emotionally regulated. You were born to set fire to what doesn't serve your soul, to choose a path so aligned with your truth that it hurts to stay the same. And that path will cost you. You will lose people. You will lose approval. You will lose the comfort of your identity. But in its place, something wild and holy will rise. The sacred rebellion is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, integrating the light and the shadow, accepting the rage, the fear, the grief, not as problems to be solved, but as powers to be used. You don't transcend by escaping your wounds. You transcend by wielding them. This is what most therapy forgets. That pain is not just a signal of dysfunction. It's a signal of potential, a spark of the divine, pressing against the smallness of the life you've been told to accept. So what do? You stop asking for permission to change. You stop rehearsing your wounds. You stop waiting for healing to arrive. You walk out of the therapeutic cocoon, not fixed, not flawless, but forged, ready to live a life that doesn't orbit around safety, but orbits around truth, even if that truth burns. In the final section, we will explore what lies beyond this transformation. What happens when you leave the systems, the sessions, the strategies, and step fully into a life of depth, danger, and meaning? A life no therapist can design for you. A life that only you can claim. Because beyond healing, beyond safety, beyond even the idea of being better, there is only becoming. There's a silence that comes after the storm. Not peace, clarity. The kind of clarity that can't be taught in a session or found in a workbook. It arrives only after you've lost what you thought was you. And from that silence, a new voice begins to whisper. Now, what will you build with the pieces? Because once the healing is done, or rather, once it has served its purpose, you are left with the unbearable weight of freedom. No more excuses. No more working on it. Just the terrifying, magnificent question of who you will choose to become. And make no mistake, becoming is not the soft, pastel process sold in wellness memes. It is brutal, it is sacred, and it is yours alone. This is the space where therapy can no longer go with you. Not because it failed, but because it was never supposed to finish the journey. At best, it was a bridge. But you weren't meant to live on the bridge. You were meant to cross it. Too often, therapy becomes the destination. A new identity. A place of chronic preparation. But healing is not the point of life. It's the starting line. The clearing of rubble so something holy can rise. A life of becoming doesn't revolve around your past. It emerges from your choices. It's not about what happened to you, it's about what you build because of it. The relationships you forge, the courage you summon, the art you create, the risks you take, the meaning you make from the ruins. This is where you begin to understand what Viktor Frankl meant when he wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." Therapy can help you survive your circumstances, but only you can choose your purpose. Only you can assign meaning to your pain. Only you can transcend the story you inherited and write something worth dying for. This is where becoming begins. Not in insight, but in initiation. Not in understanding your darkness, but in harnessing it. Not in safety, but in self-authorship. The world does not need more self-aware people repeating their trauma in softer voices. The world needs warriors of the soul. People who are willing to confront the dark and emerge bearing light. People who are done rehearsing their pain and ready to embody their power. You will not find this in a diagnosis. You will not find it in a safe space. You will not find it by endlessly circling the language of healing. You will find it by choosing, by committing, by acting. Because becoming isn't something that happens to you. It's something you do, again and again, until one day you realize you've become someone the old version of you would barely recognize. Not healed, not perfect, but real. And what could be more terrifying or more beautiful than that? So ask yourself, finally and without mercy, have I turned healing into a hiding place? Have I mistaken introspection for initiation? Am I still waiting for permission to begin? Because here is the truth no one tells you. You will never be fully healed. You will never feel fully ready. And that's okay. You don't need to be whole to be holy. You don't need to be fixed to be free. The work was never to repair you. The work was always to reveal you. So stand up, walk out of the waiting room, tear up the script of your wounds, and write something raw, dangerous, and true. Not a life of healing, a life of becoming. And that, at last, is where therapy ends and you begin.